Next on the RCWR Show, it's the first TNA pay-per-view of the new calendar year as Genesis comes to us live from the Orlando studios, Florida. Yours truly is going to be putting on the thinking cap as a booker and as a writer and try to figure out who's going to walk away victorious from Sunday's pay-per-view. It's the RCWR Show Call That Match special covering TNA Genesis, and it begins right now.
Live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., this is the RCWR Show with your host, Lee Sanders.
Welcome, everybody, to our Call That Match special of the RCWR Show, offering match predictions for Sunday's TNA Genesis pay-per-view. Black Avenger, a.k.a. the Black Azrael, Lee Sanders with you all on this special Friday night, January 11, 2013. We're just less than 48 hours away from the TNA Genesis pay-per-view. And if you are not able to see it live in person from Orlando, Florida, you got the next best thing, as you'll be able to pull up a nice comfy seat, click on that remote control buy option, and be able to watch it on your big old screen TV live on pay-per-view. You know how we do it with our Call That Match series, and if you are not familiar with it, then you're going to have one hell of a good time as I put on my writing cap and I put on my booking cap to try to figure out who's going to be walking away victorious from the respective pay-per-view. Also try to give you a little bit of a preview into what you might be able to see for future episodes of Impact Wrestling. Now, this marks the first time in several months that we're bringing our Call That Match series exclusively to YouTube, as we have a pretty busy, jam-packed weekend for the next few days, and really jam-packed. Of course, we'll give you all the details about that right after we're done covering predictions for TNA Genesis. But without any further ado, let's go on ahead and let's jump right into it. So, overall, a lot of great matches on the card that I'm really, honestly, genuinely looking very forward to seeing. I can't wait to see how this is going to all play out. Let's talk about the first match that we got. We have the one and only Matt Morgan and Joey Ryan teaming up once again as they're going to be taking on Chavo, Guerrero Jr. and Big Supermax Hernandez for those TNA World Tag Team Championships. Now, as you all recall, it was just last month at the Final Resolution pay-per-view that Joey Ryan and Matt Morgan, though they looked pretty impressive in their first outing with the tag champions, they didn't quite get the job done as they let their frustrations get the best of them. They actually gave Chavo, Guerrero and Hernandez the win via disqualification, as really they were just trying to add insult to injury. This time around, a lot more at stake as the rivalry between these two tag teams has really just been igniting. And let's not forget what we saw on Impact Live from this past Thursday, where Joey Ryan and Matt Morgan were cutting promos on the tag champions, when all of a sudden the champions just happened to walk on by and decided to jump on them. Really, a rivalry that you can get behind, but the million-dollar question, who's going to be walking away from Sunday's pay-per-view? Now, I've been paying very close attention to both of these two respected tag teams. Of course, I have been paying very close attention to Joey Ryan, Matt Morgan, just ever since they have been put together. And it just seemed like when they were first put together, they had a lot of momentum going in their favor, and they were working with the Hulkster there. But then it just kind of seemed like it just faded away just a little bit. Now it just kind of seems like they're just floating around there. And right now, they've almost kind of got to a point where they are starting to become a little bit irrelevant. And I don't like using those words when I talk about Matt Morgan and Joey Ryan, because those are two guys that I actually love a lot. I'm a big fan of their work, and I just think what they do in the ring, what they do on the mic, I think they do some really great, superb stuff. In my honest opinion, and this is just my honest opinion, as someone that covers the sport of professional wrestling, sports entertainment, I really like the team of Matt Morgan and Joey Ryan. I think they have more longevity. I think that they have more charisma. I think that they have more that they can bring to the microphone. And so even though I came up short offering my match prediction of them being the winners at the Final Resolution pay-per-view, boys and girls, I still got to go with Joey Ryan and Matt Morgan for the win right here, especially right now. I really feel as though they really need this, because to see these two guys walk away with another loss, I just really feel there would really be no way for them to kind of redeem themselves from that. And see, at the point that we're at right now with this respected tag team, doesn't quite look like Hulk Hogan is so focused on them anymore, as his attention is elsewhere, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But keeping that in mind, and in the back of your head, that Hulk Hogan is now out of the equation to kind of really help push these guys along. They need all the help they can get right now. So I've got them having the tag team titles this Sunday. I would expect for the rivalry between Chavo and Hernandez to continue. I would expect them to want to try to see if they can get a rematch for these belts. Maybe this could be a good setup for a open fight night edition of Impact, where once again they'll come up short, and then maybe the rivalry could just continue to build on now that TNA is going to be restructuring their pay-per-view strategy. In case you have not heard, it looks like they are going to be dropping their major pay-per-views. They're cropping it big time, as no longer are we going to be getting 12. It looks like now they are going to be dropping it to focus on the big major 4, which is going to be Genesis this Sunday, of course, and then Lockdown on March 10th, Slammiversary on June 9th, and Bound for Glory on October 13th. So that's the setup right here. Of course, we're going to have some special TNA one-night-only wrestling events that's going to be happening every so often, but just keeping everything that's going on right here. This rivalry that we've been seeing between Joey Ryan, Matt Morgan, Chavo, Guerrero, Hernandez, it could continue on into a next pay-per-view and just end right there. But, in either case, look for the rivalry to continue on. But I'm going to go with the team of Joey Ryan, Matt Morgan for the win. Let's move on with our next match, boys and girls, which brings us to Gail Kim versus ODB versus Miss Tessmacher versus Mickie James versus Velvet Sky in a gauntlet match to determine the #1 contender to face the TNA Knockouts champion, Miss Tara. And bear in mind that it appears as though the winner of that Knockouts Battle Royal, they could possibly, just put that in the back of your head now, they could possibly be facing Tara later that night. Now, TNA Wrestling, they haven't officially announced that, but you would kind of think that maybe they could possibly go down that route. So don't be too surprised if you might see it happen. But if it doesn't happen, if they're just trying to go strictly with just this gauntlet match to determine the #1 contender, then we'll just deal with it as it is. For me, this just really boils down to who should it really be. Now, with all due respect to Mickie James, I love Mickie James. Her and Tara, normally, they just tear the roof off. They always have some really great matches. Who could forget about the rivalries that they've had in WWE and some of the great matches they've been having in TNA last few years. Recently, since Mickie James has been back, it's been a little bit rough around the edges, so to speak. But still, it's been enjoyable to watch the two of them get it on. But I'm not quite sold on Mickie James right now. Let's go to Miss Tessmacher. As we saw from Impact Wrestling this Thursday, it seems like Miss Tessmacher might be a little bit more preoccupied right now with Big Robbie So, I don't know. I don't think she's going to be getting it either. So that leaves ODB, Gail Kim, Velvet Sky. ODB, I think her body is in the right place, but her mind isn't. I'm just thinking from that writing standpoint, somewhere in the back of her mind, she's probably still got that whole thing going on with Eric Young, and I just really think right now this would kind of be a major contradiction to see ODB become the #1 contender to try to face Tara for the Knockouts title, when we just saw ODB say a couple of weeks ago how she's trying to be by Eric Young's side as he finally had got out of the hospital, and that basically the next time that we would see her, she would be with EY. So I really don't see her winning this. I'm not sold on her becoming the #1 contender. So that leaves us with Gail Kim, and that leaves us with Velvet Sky. Now, here's the main question you all should be asking yourselves right now. The way TNA Wrestling does some of their booking here, when was the last time we saw two bad girls go at it for the Knockouts title? It's been a damn good while, and nobody would argue that Gail Kim is one of the best wrestlers that they have in TNA when it comes to those knockouts. She really is one of the best that they have on that roster. I'm not quite sure that they would pull the trigger and go that route, but personally, if it was me, I would actually go that route. I think it's something that would be really fresh, really new, something that the fans could really get behind and just really be blown away at the athleticism that these two women could bring. Because I think in-ring wise, they would tell a really great story, but there's just something in the back of my head that is just seeing TNA booking not quite going that route. But again, for the record, that's the route I would go. I think we have to keep in mind what Velvet Sky had said on one of the last few episodes of Impact Wrestling for 2012, which is 2013 is supposed to be the year of Velvet Sky, or as I like to say, the year of the Velvet Sky. So I'm keeping that in the back of my mind when I look at all these names. And I think this is probably going to be the first major step for Velvet Sky in recapturing her TNA Knockouts title that she really did not even have that long the first time that she did obtain it. So Velvet Sky is the person I see getting the job done. And I think that her and Tara, I think that with the way that these pay-per-views are being structured now, I think they're going to have plenty of time to really just milk this rivalry, really build up the anticipation for their next match. I think they're going to be doing some phenomenal stuff right here. I'm going with Velvet Sky for the win. I don't know about you guys, but I think 2013, it really does need to kick off to a very good start. And hey, we've already seen Tara have her dance with Mickie James, Tessmacher, even ODB there. They probably won't touch Gail Kim, but Velvet Sky, that is the way to go. Next match, we have Christopher Daniels taking on James Storm. Remember, Daniels and Kazarian, they've been a bit of a pain in the ass, so to speak, to the Cowboy within recent weeks. So it doesn't really surprise me that we see this match coming. This is really all about, okay, it's time to shut this person up once and for all. That's how I'm kind of looking at this match. As we've seen Daniels and Kazarian, they've just been riding off of Daniels' success of defeating AJ Styles at the Final Resolution pay-per-view, beating him with his own finishing move, the Styles Clash. And then we've kind of seen them focus their attention on the Cowboy within recent weeks. So this is a good match right here where James Storm, he can finally shut up Daniels once and for all, or it could actually backfire. The real question should be, is Kazarian going to try to interfere in this match. You know, I'm just looking at this from a booking standpoint, and quite honestly, I would love to see Daniels pick up a win over James Storm. I mean, the guy has just really been freaking phenomenal within recent weeks. I mean, he has just really taken things to a whole new other level. I think Daniels has the perfect opportunity right here with regards to a singles match to really show that he can make more memorable matches than just with AJ Styles. You know, it's not every day we can sit up and say, oh, Daniels and James Storm, they went at it and it was a damn good 5-star quality type of match. You don't really hear something like that come out of the mouths of TNA wrestling fans on a regular basis. So this match right here, it has all the opportunities in the world to be one of the early show stealers. If I was doing this right, I would actually have Daniels defeat James Storm. I would still have him ride high off of that win over AJ Styles. However, I just don't quite see that happening. I think that James Storm may end up getting the win right here. And quite honestly, I just, you know, I'm thinking about it. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way to see that happen. And I just got this weird sick feeling that James Storm is probably going to get the win. But, you know, in the right perfect world here, it would be Daniels getting it. And as I said, for the reasons why Daniels would get it, it makes a whole lot of sense because he could really use it. James Storm, he really doesn't need this. It really wouldn't do him any good. There's really nothing to really gain from it. Daniels, on the other hand, he would have a lot to gain from this. But again, I just don't see it playing out that way. I see Storm picking up the win. However, I do continue seeing Daniels and Kazarian being a little bit of a thorn to his side. We have Doc from Aces and Eights who's going to be taking on the Icon Sting. My, how perfectly we just slide on into a pay-per-view. Haven't even been back for 3 weeks. Yes, I'm talking about Sting. Already he's in a match and he's going to be taking on Doc from Aces and Eights. Of course, let's not forget, it was Doc just a couple of months ago that had severely injured Sting, supposedly, and had put him on the shelf for a while as the Icon is looking to get the big payback over Doc. You know, the real question for this match should be, will other Aces and Eights brothers try to come down and help Doc out with this match? That needs to be the real question right now. Do I see a decisive winner in this match? No, I do not, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. You know how the Aces and Eights work. You know they like to work in a pack, and that's exactly what I see happening. Now, if you really want to go there and pick my brain and say, well, could we even possibly entertain the idea of somebody walking away with a win over this? Okay, I'll go there. I'll say Sting will pick up the win. I'll say Sting will probably pick up the win with the Scorpion leg lock. I'm going to put that out there. He's probably going to win via submission, but it wouldn't surprise me to see other Aces and Eights members come on out and try to get the jump on Sting. Would be a nice, perfect setup to see Samoa Joe, Wes Briscoe, Garrett Bischoff come to the aid of the Stinger, and we just see all hell break out in the ring for a little bit. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. I'm going with Sting for the win. Sting needs this. His whole mentality right now, since he had came back, what was that, last week on the first episode of Impact Live, has been getting revenge on the Aces and Eights. He wants to start with Doc, and then hopefully he can move on to Devon. All right, let's talk about the singles match for the X Division #1 contender spot, where we got Kenny King taking on Christian York. This match right here, this has really, other than the Daniels and James Storm match, this match right here, I'm going to be paying very, very close attention to, because this is going to be one of those type of matches. And if you've been watching the style of Kenny King and you've been watching the in-ring abilities of Christian York, you know you're going to be in for a really, really great matchup right here. And this should be one of those type of matches that's going to have a lot of fans talking after the pay-per-view is over. This is probably going to be one of a handful of matches that fans will most likely be wanting to watch over and over again. Two really great guys right here. You know, either way you cut this, RVD is going to be waiting to face one of these men for his TNA X Division title. So the real question is, which route do you take? Do you go with Christian York, or do you go with Kenny King? Now, we have seen the little bit of rivalry there that has been going on between Kenny King and Rob Van Dam. Let's not forget, it was just last week on Impact Wrestling where Kenny King and RVD, they were in a tag match, and things didn't quite go so well, as Kenny King had left his buddy Rob Van Dam hanging to suffer a huge defeat at the hands of Matt Morgan and Joey Ryan. So you're keeping that in mind, and you're saying to yourself, well, how could this exactly play out then? You know, I would love to go with Christian York, but there's just something just rattling in the back of my head that TNA is not quite going to go there just yet with York. I think they're going to work on him for just a couple of more months. I don't see him in the spot with RVD, although I must admit, a Christian York versus Rob Van Dam match, that would just be really, really freaking phenomenal. Honestly, I mean, if I was booking this, it would be Christian York versus Rob Van Dam for the X Division Championship, and I would actually have Christian York become the new X Division champion. That's the way I would do it. But I'm looking at it from a seniority standpoint. I'm looking at it from a Kenny King standpoint now that it looks like he is officially on the roster, so to speak. And I'm thinking about that little bit of an exchange that he's been having with RVD in recent weeks. It just makes more sense for Kenny King to advance to take on Rob Van Dam. So for that singles match, for that number one contender spot, Kenny King advances. Now, let's talk about that match with Rob Van Dam. Is it time to pull the trigger and make Kenny King be the new TNA X Division champion? Now, we know there is that core audience out there. If you were to poll them and say, hey, what do you think about Rob Van Dam being the X Division champion? You know there's that core audience that's going to sit up and say, you know what, Rob Van Dam, he's had his time. He's won every single belt in every single promotion. He's won belts in WWE, WWF, ECW, TNA. He's pretty much won belts wherever he's gone. You know what? He needs to just cough it up, let somebody up and coming take it over. That's going to be the core conscience of your TNA wrestling fan that quite honestly doesn't particularly care. 30s, early 40s. I mean, he's doing pretty damn good work, I feel. But Kenny King would be the way to go. He has a little bit of swagger going on right now. You know, he just seems to be a good commodity that would be a smart investment right about now. And honestly, I think Rob Van Dam kind of needs to have a little bit of a fire lit under his ass, so to speak. I mean, when was the last time you saw something just really rub Rob Van Dam the wrong way and he's just no longer cool and mellow? Maybe it's about that time we see a little bit of a mean streak come from out of Rob Van Dam. I don't know about you all, but that's what I would like to see happen. But I actually have Kenny King going over Rob Van Dam. I would be a little bit shocked, and I must admit, I'd be a little bit disappointed if Kenny King was not able to walk away with the X Division Championship. Let's move on with our next match, which brings us to Joseph Park taking on Devon. It's the match that Joseph begged the Hulkster for on Impact Live. He feels that now that he has successfully completed his training at OVW, he now has the right to be an active wrestler, and he wants to wrestle. And the person he wants to wrestle is someone from Aces and Eights. Hulkster not really putting that much of a thought process into this, as he has other things on his plate. Hulkster giving him the match, as he's going to be taking on Devon. Now, I'm looking at this, and as much as I would love to just kick back and think about Joseph Park getting revenge, I just unfortunately do not see that happening. Devon, hands down, Devon needs this, because what's going on in my mind right now, I think the bigger payoff would be Sting versus Devon. So to me, that really doesn't make any sense to see Joseph Park pick up a win over Devon, when it would make more sense. Smart here now. Think smart for a moment. It looks better on paper to have Sting take on Devon at a future pay-per-view. Okay, so what happens with this particular match? Well, I think it's going to be one of those type of matches where Joseph Park, he's probably going to have his ass handed to him for a little bit. Devon's going to be toying around with him, possibly kind of playing with his food before he eats it. But he's going to be playing around one too many times. That's going to bring out that mean streak from Joseph Park. He's going to tap into his brother, Abyss. And he's just going to start busting out all those trademark moves that we've all come to know and love from Abyss, such as the Black Hole Slam. And I think at that point, in that moment of surprise, that we're probably going to see other Aces and Eights members come to the aid of Devon. Mr. Anderson, he could possibly play a role in this as well. Let's not forget, Mr. Anderson, he still has not done any dirty work with the Aces and Eights, yet he's been hanging out with them. So you can't help but wonder, what type of a role is he going to play possibly in this match? And let's not forget, and what role he could possibly play in the Sting versus Doc match as well. But I have other Aces and Eights members coming out to try to help Devon out once they see that he's starting to get his butt whooped in that ring by Joseph, who has a Abyss Hawk out moment, if you will. And this could probably prompt Sting, Wes Briscoe, Garrett Bischoff, Samoa Joe. This could probably prompt all those guys to come out once again. They get into another brawl. Don't be too surprised if you see Sting and all these guys and Aces and Eights end up brawling in the ring twice in one night on this pay-per-view, which would really just set up one hell of a strong episode of Impact Wrestling, where Sting could basically sit up and say, you know what, we keep going at it back and forth. We were going at it on Sunday, Aces and Eights. We told you we were going to do this to you, and we did it on Sunday, stood our ground, yada, yada, yada. Great little setup that we have for Impact Live next week. All right, let's talk about the next match that we have on the card, folks. And, of course, as always, we save the very best for last. It's the triple threat elimination match for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. We have Double A, Austin Aries, taking on the It Factor in professional wrestling, Bobby Roode, taking on the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, Jeff Hardy. This is the match right here that we need to be paying very close attention to, because they could really throw us a curveball right here. Does Jeff Hardy become the first one to get eliminated? If so, then that means by default we're going to get crowned a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. On the other hand, this could play out in a way where maybe Jeff Hardy retains. I mean, let's really break this down. We got Austin Aries, who feels that ever since he had lost the World Heavyweight Championship, that basically what the win did for Jeff Hardy was nothing more than a fluke. Austin Aries feels as though he should still be the champion. Jeff Hardy is looking at that and taking that as Austin Aries being delusional, that the championship had changed him when he had won it. Look at what's going on Bobby Roode's side. Bobby Roode feels that legitimacy needs to be brought back to that TNA title, and that it pays to be Roode, as he guarantees he's going to be walking out the Orlando Studios, Florida, as the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. This is going to be the match that's really going to set up the tone for weeks of episodes worth of Impact Wrestling Live. And quite honestly, this is going to be one of the matches that a lot of people are going to be talking about. You know, we called this weeks ago. I told you guys on an episode of Impact Showdown Radio that hands down, this was going to be one of those type of setups where we probably were going to see a triple threat match, and lo and behold, this is exactly what we have. And I think it's about damn time that they went this route, because we had got hit with so many singles matches within recent months, just month after month, singles matches. You know, it's always easy to kind of predict who's going to walk away from the pay-per-view if it's just a singles match for the TNA title. But to kind of have a little bit of a monkey wrench in here, as it's being a elimination match here, anything could really happen. But, you know, when it's all said and done, as much as I love Austin Aries, as much as I love Bobby Roode, I just think right now the smart money stays with Jeff Hardy. I am just really, it's taking me a while, but I'm actually starting to grow into liking Jeff Hardy as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I think he has just been doing a phenomenal job representing the company so far. And I think that momentum needs to continue going into the first quarter of 2013, especially with the way everything that's going to be playing out for the organization for these first 6 months. I think he is the man that they need to go with right now. He is their most recognizable face in TNA right now. Girls love him. Guys love him. Little kids love him. Jeff Hardy is your way to go right now. That's the ticket to go. Now, one could ask, well, what do you do with Jeff Hardy after he's won this match? Who could he possibly work with next? Well, that would be a really great setup for Impact Wrestling the next episode. You could have there be some type of a new number one contenders match, and quite honestly, I would love to see Samoa Joe step from the shadows and be in a program with Jeff Hardy. Or how about the Cowboy, James Storm? I mean, that's another guy that you can go with. Or how about you get aces and eights involved? You could have maybe Devon kind of do a little something there. There's plenty of options that you can go with Jeff Hardy. But I think at this point, I think Jeff Hardy needs to walk away as the winner. Now, with regards to Austin Aries and Bobby Roode, I think what would be a good exit from this match would be to see the two of them possibly enter a feud of their own. Maybe it could be a one-on-one type of deal, or better yet, you know, we saw shades of a little bit of great chemistry that the two guys had from this past Thursday night as they were trying to work as a tag team to take on Jeff Hardy and James Storm, and they actually worked pretty damn well together. Now, I know it's going backwards, especially for Bobby Roode, who had been a tag champion multiple times, but I actually wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of a breather there of Bobby Roode and Austin Aries team up and maybe try to pose a threat on the tag division. Just a little food for thought. It probably might not happen, but I'll settle for the two of these guys getting it on in a singles match. But in the meantime, I do think a new number one contender would need to be named for Jeff Hardy, and maybe we could begin to see some type of a tournament come about beginning on next week's Impact Wrestling. And folks, there you have it. There are your match winners. The one question I'm sure that's on the minds of a lot of TNA wrestling fans for this Sunday's pay-per-view, especially since his face has been plastered all over this event, commercials have been seen of him. What's going on with Bully Ray, who's been fired by the TNA general manager, Hulk Hogan? Is he going to be possibly popping up at this event? And quite honestly, I would be really shocked to see this pay-per-view just come and go without any type of a cameo by Bully Ray. Look for him to make some type of an appearance. I think he's going to play a very pivotal role between one of those matches between Sting versus Doc and Devon versus Joseph Park. Personally, if it was me booking this right, I would actually have Devon versus Joseph Park happen first. Then, midway into the night, I would have Sting take on Doc from Aces and Eights, and maybe that could be the way they could bring in Bully Ray. As let's not forget what we saw on Impact this past Thursday night, Aces and Eights, they tried to kidnap Brooke Hogan, but Bully Ray was able to come to the rescue at the very last minute. He was actually able to beat the Hulkster to the punch right there. So look for some type of a cameo. Maybe this could possibly set up some type of a improv match where Sting could team up with Bully Ray and maybe they could take on two members of the Aces and Eights. Maybe this could be a case where either someone or both guys in Aces and Eights may lose their mask if it ends up being a scenario where two masked men come in. Otherwise, maybe this could be a setup where maybe Mike Knox could team with Doc to take on Sting and Bully Ray. But mark my words, Bully Ray will make some type of an appearance at this event. He has to. Let's take it from the very top and let's work our way back down, all right? All right, so for the Gauntlet match to determine the number one contender for the TNA Women's Knockout Championship, I have the winner of that being Velvet Sky. Devon versus Joseph Park. I have Devon picking up the win. Again, look for interference from Aces and Eights, Sting, Wes Briscoe, Garrett Bischoff. Kenny King versus Christian York in a singles match for the X Division number one contender spot. I have Kenny King advancing to meet Rob Van Dam. And for that match, for the TNA X Division Championship, I have Kenny King becoming your new X Division champion. For Doc versus Sting in a singles match, I have Sting picking up the win. Once again, look for interference from Aces and Eights and possibly Samoa Joe, Wes Briscoe, Garrett Bischoff coming to Sting's rescue. Christopher Daniels takes on James Storm. I have the Cowboy picking up the victory, although for me personally it would make more sense to go with Daniels. Matt Morgan and Joey Ryan team up once again to face Chavo, Guerrero, and Hernandez for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. I have Joey Ryan and Matt Morgan really needing this win right here. They need to become the new TNA World Tag Champs. And for your main event in the Triple Threat Elimination match for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, once again, defying the odds. I have the charismatic Enigma, Jeff Hardy, picking up the win. Great setup for Impact Wrestling Live next Thursday night as it's going to be covering the fallout from the Genesis pay-per-view, where we're going to see Bully Ray and Brooke Hogan try to do a wedding live on TV in front of the Impact crowd. You know Big Daddy Hogan is going to play a huge role in that. It would not surprise me one little bit if he tried to sit up and do something to make this wedding not happen. I would not even be too surprised if he might even try to reach out to aces and eights to try to break it up. I think that's just how low Hulk Hogan would go. Don't be too surprised at that if you actually end up seeing that happen. Also, we have a great setup for Jeff Hardy, who probably is going to need to try to figure out who the next number one contender is going to be to face him on. And quite honestly, this puts TNA Wrestling in a very good spot where for a good series of weeks, they could have tournament matches to try to determine who can be that number one contender. And as I suggested earlier, Samoa Joe, and let's not forget about the Cowboy James Storm. He probably may end up still having his hands be full with Daniels and Kazarian. Be a nice little opportunity for somebody else to slide perfectly right in there. Now, who could that person be that could slide in to maybe pair up with James Storm? Quite honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Christian York maybe align himself with the Cowboy to take on Daniels and Kazarian. As you know, those guys, they like to play the numbers game. But really great setup for Impact Wrestling and future weeks to come. And of course, in case you might have missed the major news that had came from TNA Wrestling this week, they had announced a new worldwide pay-per-view programming initiative for this year. Now, the 52 annual episodes of Impact Wrestling on Spike TV will lead to four live epic pay-per-view events that will coincide with Genesis on January 13th, Lockdown on March 10th, Slammiversary on June 9th, and Bound for Glory on October 13th. And in addition to that, there's going to be 7 pay-per-view specials that will be branded as TNA Wrestling One Night Only. And this series will debut in April and continue throughout the year during the additional months. And these are going to be 3-hour events. So really nice gap between to really build great rivalries that fans can really start feeling invested in and really get behind. That way, when it comes time to see it on pay-per-view, they are going to be all on it. Really great marketing here by TNA Wrestling. Really having my fingers crossed and really hoping that this plays out for them. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this first quarter does for Impact Wrestling. First quarter, second quarter, these first 6 months basically, folks. Very curious to see how this is going to play out for them. Hey, we are going to be having a jam-packed, busy next few days. And we really hope that you had enjoyed this special Friday night episode of our Call That Match series. Make sure you join me this Saturday on the RCWR Show. It's a special episode of our weekend edition as we're going to be joined by former WWE wrestler Gene Snitsky. That's right, folks. We're going to have Gene Snitsky. He's going to join me for a one-on-one interview. We're going to be talking all things wrestling, talking about his career. We're going to be going all over the place. And if you have any questions or comments you'd like for us to give to Gene, you can do so by hitting us up at the links down below in the description of this video. And we'll pick them randomly live on the air to read to Gene. So make sure you check that out. It's a huge honor to have him come by our show. And it doesn't get any bigger than Gene Snitsky, folks. And it all leads into a very, very good nightcap on a week in wrestling as we're going to be having the TNA Genesis pay-per-view post-show. You'll be able to catch that at 11 p.m. Eastern right on blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR Show for full in-depth analysis, overall takeaway of the event, live fan reactions. So those of you that ordered the pay-per-view, you're more than welcome to call into the show, as we'll take your calls live on the air. Also, for you women wrestling fans out there, those of you that support women's wrestling, we're actually going to be doing a special episode of the RCWR Post Show. It's going to be airing later tonight. That's Friday night, January 11th. It's going to be airing later tonight at 11:55 p.m. That's the special start time. I'm going to be covering the fallout from that event. So if you end up checking out that pay-per-view, you're more than welcome to call into the show or interact with us on Twitter or in our chat room and let us know what you had thought of the event. And folks, we got WWE Raw that's going to be having their 20th anniversary episode this coming Monday. And I'm very, very proud and honored to say to you guys that I'm going to be making a special appearance on the Diamond K Show at 11:30 p.m. to talk about the Raw 20th anniversary episode. So make sure that you catch that out. Of course, we'll post links at our website, Twitter, Facebook page, so that you all will be able to check that show out. YouTube subscribers, you all will get my overall takeaway on that respected episode of Raw later on in the night, as we'll upload the episode for you guys. Special RCWR post show covering Raw 20th anniversary. Look for that. It's going to probably pop up in the wee hours of the night, maybe sometime after midnight on the East Coast. Jam-packed, busy, and hey, we really hope you appreciate all the great content that we're putting out this first month, as we are really just getting started. And, I can't say this enough, and I just want to take this time out personally to say thank you to our YouTube subscribers, to our YouTube viewers, as just earlier today, you had took us past the 1 million views mark. And for that, we really appreciate it. We created this channel just a year ago, and man, how time just flies. I mean, the channel won't be officially a year old for at least another 2 months, I believe. And we've already reached 1 million views, and it just seems like on a monthly, weekly basis, sometimes daily, we're always picking up new subscribers, and we just appreciate all of you all. There's so many of you, and we can't name all of you all, but what we can do is acknowledge you all, and we are going to be doing that on a very special episode of the RCWR Show that'll be airing later this month, where we acknowledge you, the YouTube audience, the YouTube subscribers, and we'll reflect on the impact that YouTube has made on our respected episodes. So look forward to that. There's actually going to be a few special surprises. Talk of Wrestling may end here, but it always continues at our website at infinityOneProductions.com. Be sure to check that out, where we cover so much more than wrestling. While you're at it, take the time out to follow us on Facebook at Infinity One Productions. Give our page a like and follow us, as we're always posting great content on a daily basis on there. You can also follow us on Twitter for all the latest updates, upcoming shows, the works. Check it out on Twitter at Infinity One Prod. You can subscribe to all our episodes in the iTunes Zoom marketplaces. Just use the keywords, the RCWR Show. Really hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. For those of you that's going to be checking out the Shine Wrestling event, be sure to hop on over to blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR Show at 11:55 p.m. Eastern for that special post show covering the results. And then for our Gene Snitsky interview, be sure you check that out at 2:00 p.m. Eastern. Everybody, be safe, be kind to one another. Hope you have a great jump start to your weekend. See you later, folks. Take care.